ever. The first one comes from Hannah Mack. And they ask, do you have any general tips regarding approaching institutions and specifically big institutions like universities and health services to offer the services to? Now, they're asking specifically about like a contrast, like how would you do things differently if you're approaching a big institution versus small ones? They do a green well-being for students and employees, developed a 6-week in-person program with mindful forest walks. Um, they're doing networking and people are interested. They've got testimonials, did a pilot study, accreditation, have a talk ready, but they're curious about how to approach the big institutions versus small things.
Yeah. Well, it's not something I have direct experience in, but generally, I would say, find people who are already doing this and ask them how they're doing it. You're certainly not going to be the first person who's ever approached larger institutions with such an offer. And, uh, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are probably particular people in these institutions or particular roles. So this could be the HR people, these could be the administrators. I don't know, but there's certain people who make the decisions, and that's the thing you want to find is who's the person who signs the check, because that's the one who's, you're ultimately going to have to reach and speak to. And sometimes, you just call up the administrators, you call up the the information people and just say, hey, I'm trying to promote this sort of thing or get a gig, and who do I talk to in this place? And they'll tell you, oh, it's this person. The other thing is it's a lot easier to get into an institution if you have a champion, if you have somebody already on the inside who wants you there, because then they can do most of the heavy lifting. They know who to talk to and how to talk to them in ways that you never will. And then once you've figured out who those people are, generally, let's say it's the HR people, to me, then the question is, okay, what are the hubs for HR people? And they have their own conferences, they have their own get-togethers and gatherings, and there are key people in those scenes. So there are events that you could go to, you could speak at, they have newsletters you could write for. There are ways to reach those people, whoever they are in those organizations. But the first thing is you just got to figure out what's the role um, that does the hiring typically, because it's often the same name, the same type of person in different institutions. And you start with that. What are the hubs? So one example of this was so I performed with Rapid Fire Theater, an improv company in Edmonton, Alberta, for about 25 years. And at one point, I was talking with the general manager, and I said, "What do you want more of, business-wise?" And she said, "Gigs. That's what really makes the money for the for the players, and our shows do really well, but we'd like more corporate gigs. It's good money." So, okay. And how are you going about it? It's like, well, there's a certain amount of cold calling and sometimes just interest. They wanted to bring in some improv, and Rapid Fire Theater was the one. But I said, well, do you have a list, first of all the event managers in these corporations who do these things? And she stopped and she had this look. She said, oh, we don't, why don't we have that? So, okay, that's number one. And because that's a doable thing. It is not an infinite number of corporations in Edmonton. There's a lot, but in terms of the kinds who could bring you in for a gig, that's not bottomless. So it's an achievable thing if you wanted to do it. And I said, but the other thing I would do is, especially because we had a theater, though there are ways this could be translated. I said, have you ever thought about hosting a gala for all these people? I mean, you get the list and then you invite them to a free show, a free improv show, and let them know there will be a little pitch in it, and make it a wine and cheese and treat them. And so they did that a number of years in a row, and it helped them get a lot of corporate gigs, bookings right there on the night and everything. Um, so you can think about that. It's like, could I put on something for these people? that maybe they might want to come to. And if you can, that certainly makes things easier. But the big thing, find somebody who's already doing this successfully. Perhaps something adjacent to you, not the exact same thing that it would be competition, but just find out how do they do it. And if they don't want to talk to you, maybe another country, another city where it's definitely not competition. And you can just start to compare notes and they'll tell you what works and what doesn't. So that's my advice.
Lovely, thank you.